This is the Balanced Growth Show with Dr. Travis Perry, helping successful business professionals like you achieve balance in their lives.
Hello and welcome to the Balanced Growth Show. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today we have with us Chris Heller. Chris is the president of Ojo. He brings deep expertise, having held influential industry positions, including CEO at Mellohome and CEO at Keller Realty International. Chris earned his real estate license when he was 20 years old and built one of the most successful real estate teams in the U.S., from Rookie of the Year in 1989 to becoming the top producing agent in San Diego County and the #1 Keller Williams associate in all of North America. Chris is one of the industry's top thought leaders, and we're so glad we get to talk to him today about balanced growth. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, Travis, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Pleasure to get to know you a little bit better in the pre-show, and appreciate your time. We know you're busy, and there's a lot of things out there right now in the industry that are blowing up in your field. But talk to us. How did you get started in real estate at age 20, and how did you really just get off to an outstanding start in real estate?
Yeah, I was finishing up my sophomore year in college. My dad called me one day and said, "Hey, you're gonna get your real estate license and then come up here and work for the summer." Up here was Lake Tahoe, and he was managing a timeshare resort. So he said, "Hey, you're gonna come up here and sell timeshares for the summer to make some money." And for some reason I said, okay. I usually, when my dad told me stuff, I wasn't but my answer wasn't always the one he wanted to hear. So I did that, and that I got very good at that, and that continued on for several years. Ended up moving to San Diego when he took a position down there, and one day met a real estate broker, and that real estate broker, from that day on for the next 3 years, tried to convince me to get into real estate. And he would write me note cards. He would call me every time I saw him. He'd try to talk me into it. And 3 years later, he sort of caught me at a weak moment. I said, "All right, I'll give it a try." And really, really thankful that he was persistent and got me to do something that I hadn't planned on doing.
Yeah. It's interesting how those things work out sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it does. You never know.
Just don't ever know.
And then from there, it was this. I was very, very driven. I didn't have any skills. I didn't have any talent. I didn't have any experience. I didn't have any of those things. So early on, I just relied on grit and determination, and willing to work ungodly hours initially.
Yeah, I mean, you're in an industry, real estate, where you're working nights and weekends, because that's when people like me are done with work and they want to go see houses. They want to look at lots or whatever, buy duplexes for investment purposes, those sorts of things. So we get it. It's definitely rough on the hours. Talk to me about, as you've been able to grow in this business, how did that then turn into CEO of these other companies and brought you to Ojo? Fill in those blanks.
Yeah. So I'll answer it a couple of ways. So philosophically, it led to it because I've always operated under the philosophy of, if I get great results, I'll get opportunities. And I've never been one to I'm not a good advocate for myself. I'm not one to ask for things, but I am one to say, "Hey, I will do what it takes to show you that I deserve opportunities, or that will create opportunities for myself." So I've just worked to get oversized results, and just having a knowing that would lead to opportunities. And that's kind of what happened with Keller Williams. That became the #1 agent, and out of over 100,000 agents, and they were had been thinking for years of expanding internationally, and approached me one day and said, "Hey, we've been wanting to expand internationally. We haven't until we got into a certain size, and we're close to getting to that size, and we haven't because we've never had someone that we thought could do it, and we think you'd be the perfect one." So that was a conversation. 2 years later, I became the president of the worldwide division and launched Keller Williams globally and over 20 different countries around the world. And um, did that at such a high level, and I think exceeded everyone's expectations so much that I sort of became the obvious choice to become the CEO when the current CEO was ready to turn over the reins. After 13 years there, when I left Keller Williams, met the founder of Loan Depot, and he, through several meetings, said, "Hey, I want to be in business with you, and I want to start this sister company. I want you to be the CEO of it." And it was based on the results I'd gotten elsewhere that led to that opportunity, and same with the current opportunity. So it's always been, being willing to do what it takes. That willingness, I think, is a key factor when it comes to accomplishment and getting results, and then obviously doing things the right way, so that people have that faith and belief that you're the right person.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And it sounds like to me also an underpinning is the good relationships you've been able to keep and cultivate as you've grown in business. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Why is it important when you are growing your business that you have great balance?
It's there's a couple of ways I want to talk about that. I've always done things that I like, and if I don't like them, I don't do them. So when you do what you do a lot of something, you really like it, it doesn't feel like work. And when something doesn't feel like work, then that issue of balance isn't, staring you in the face or isn't so obvious, right? Because you're just doing what you like to do. I've also never believed that there's true, balance, or as you refer to in your book, as equilibrium, right? That doesn't exist in real life.
Right.
But integrating, what you do when you're working and what you're doing when you're not working, and integrating that into your experience and the people you care about, their experience is what I've focused on. So, I said a little early on, I worked these, just ridiculous hours. That was for a finite period of time, and I had no other choice. It was at a time, it was before the internet, right? I couldn't go to YouTube to learn things. There weren't trainers. I had to figure it out on my own. But as soon as I did, in fact, at the end of my first year, I hired an assistant. And back then, that was really unusual. Like that didn't really exist. Agents didn't have assistants, but it was the only way that I thought I could create more leverage or create more time to be able to do the other things that I wanted to do and still keep growing my business. And so leverage is one of those things that I've always used and benefited from in having that, the balance that you speak of.
Yeah. No, really great point of, leveraging your time. And we know balance is a psychological feeling because you're spending the time where you want to be spending it. You bring up a really good point though about loving what you do and being passionate about your profession. And sometimes though, people use this as an excuse to be out of balance, even though they value balance. They
Yeah.
use it as an excuse. What do you think has helped you to not fall into that trap?
Okay, I'm sure that there's people that looked at me and said that I was out of balance, right? Probably earlier in my career and earlier in my when I wasn't as mature as a human, a man, a business person. But I think one of the things that probably helped and still does this day is I'm not real concerned about what other people think. I'm concerned about doing the things that I want to do, being happy, making sure that the people I care about are being taken care of, not just in a material way, not financially, but I mean their needs, their time, our time, being able to do things. I've also always operated with that cliche philosophy of working hard and playing hard. So making sure that there was when I was working, and when I was playing, I was playing. And and getting the right amount of both of those so that the things work.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that a lot. I work hard and I play hard. Excellent. And there's a lot of us that feel that way. We're passionate about life. That's what it tells me. It tells me you're passionate about life and you enjoy work. Some people, they really struggle with their job. Entrepreneurs, though, this is typically not the case. If you didn't like it, you change it. You're change
Exactly.
makers.
Yeah.
You're change makers. So as an entrepreneur, as you've been out, making a difference in the world of real estate, helping your clients, you talked initially about, being able to leverage your time by building a team, by starting to build a team. Let's talk about your team. Obviously, you've grown your own real estate team, and you've been ahead of one of the largest real estate companies in the world. Let's talk about the importance of team and its vital impact on you being able to grow and scale businesses.
Yeah, I think the key point there is talent. You know, so always bringing people on your team that are super talented or the most talented that you can find. Um, I had no ego about. In fact, I was always looking for people that were smarter or better than me at the roles that they played. I did not want to be the smartest one in the room, because if that was the case, then I would be the cap to what could be achieved, or the lid, that would keep us from growing. So talent is I think the key component to being able to have a great team, and to be able to leverage that team. And then, there's the other pieces of it. Are they the right people? Are they the right team members? Are they the teammates? Do they like and thrive being part of a team? Um, are there people that for me, that I have to be able to trust? Like, trust has to be is a deal breaker, right? So if there's I got to be able to trust implicitly, and I have to be able to be me. If I have to be something else or someone else to make that relationship work, then I know ultimately it won't, right? Because I can't for an extended period of time try to be something I'm not. So find those people that I work well with, that work well with me, that I trust, that are super talented.
Yeah, great points. As you're finding these people, you trust them. They've got great talent. There's a vibe there. It works together. What have you found has been a component of having a great culture of balance within your team at work? What would you say to that, as those who are maybe struggling to have a great balanced culture?
Yeah, I think again, I tend to attract people, and I've had people that have been with me at 3 or 4 different companies now, right? They were with me at this company, and then I went to this, and they're with me here, and they're with me at this one. Um, and so, there's I like to do, when I'm doing something, I like to do it, and I'll put in the time and the energy to make it be successful. So I tend to attract people that are like that, right? So we're similar in those ways. At the same time, I never will begrudge someone for, the amount of time, as long as they're getting the job done and doing the things they need to do, and we're winning and they're succeeding. If they say, hey, I got to go do this, right? I'm going here, I'm taking this time off. It's like, have fun, like, great. So, I want them to, if they're not in a situation where they're feeling good about what they're doing or how they're spending their time, and their energy, and psychologically feeling safe and good, then I know that's not sustainable, and that's not going to win either. So um, it's treating them the way I'd want to be treated, but also understanding that everyone's situation is different, and allowing for that, as long as we're accomplishing the things that we set out to accomplish.
Yeah, great points. The flexibility is really key these days. A lot of people are struggling to hire good talent. We've had a huge whiplash with COVID, and then, shutting down and then coming back, this big call to come back to work. Talk to me about Ojo's position on hybrid working, full-time, in the office or flexible working? Where do you guys stand there?
It's a really good question. We're a hybrid operation. We have an office. We have people that come in. We don't, and we have not, other than for certain functions or meetings or planning sessions, we don't require a certain amount of time in the office or a certain number of days. We do believe that people that do better and want to be in an office, that we want them to have that opportunity to do that. And there's others that over those 2 or 3 years of going through the pandemic, set their lives up to work a certain way. It does require, when you're not in the office and not together, it does require that, again, that you have the right type of people, because it's very easy for someone to take advantage of a situation or to not be putting in the time or the energy or the focus they should be because they have other distractions or other things going on. So communication needs to be at a whole nother level than if you're there. I believe there's a lot of value of being together. There's a lot of synergies, a lot of energies, and I understand in the world today, and maybe in the world from today, from this point forward, that won't always be possible or won't always be reality. So then we have to figure out how to be, again, highly efficient, highly effective in different types of situations.
What would you say are some of the biggest issues that you see in this hybrid model, for productivity? Obviously we tend to think, again, balance is not just not working either. Let's be clear. My book, Achieving Balance, is all about productivity. Like, it's about managing time well at work so you can, live life on purpose outside of it. So that said, productivity is a sticking point for many. And in fact, I've talked to a lot of business owners who feel like, no, we need to be back in office so they can have more control. And I find that to be kind of a sticky point with a lot of business owners. So talk to me a little bit about that. What are some of the issues there with productivity being hybrid?
There's no doubt initially, and maybe even to this day, we saw productivity go up, and we saw it go up because people were just working more, right? They weren't commuting. Their office was, their living room or their den or their home office, and they were there 24/7. That doesn't mean they were working 24/7, but they were probably working more hours than they were by driving to the office, putting in their 8 or 9 or 10 hours, and then driving home. So one of the things that we became aware of and conscious of is making sure that people weren't getting too far out of balance. And so we have, besides the normal holidays, we have a week in the summertime, a week in the wintertime. We have that we give people off, and those are, Ojo week offs to recharge, to regroup, to rest up, to be able to come back and go full steam ahead. We have various days, not every month, but almost every month, where there'll be a longer weekend for those reasons. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people, and I'm not naive enough to think that there aren't people that aren't putting in the hours or aren't taking advantage or are out of balance the other direction, and spending too much time. But that if you're involved and you're engaged with your teams, and you're all working or stretching to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, it's pretty easy to tell if that exists, if someone's out of balance the other way, and to be able to address that quickly. And typically those people in a high performing team, those people, they're not gonna, they're going to stick out for the wrong reasons, and they're not going to be able to hide, right? It's just like, it's just like any sports team, right? If there's someone that's not carrying their load or fulfilling on their role, the team members and the teammates are going to know, and something's going to be said or done.
It's interesting. In my second book, Balanced Growth, that's coming out by the end of this month, we're filming here in January. We're actually talking about this concept of team. We're taking it literally to the playing field. And I grew up playing soccer, played volleyball, we did baseball. Like, there's lots of sports analogies here that we could relate, but you're exactly right. On the playing field, if somebody's not pulling their load, either in sales, marketing, operations, or fulfillment, one of the four areas, it sticks out and it does show. No matter if they're, in person or hybrid or virtual 100% of the time, the numbers just don't show up there. So, what do you do to address this issue? And how could other leaders learn from, your process of trying to address and correct that problem, if it is a problem?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just to understand what's going on. So not coming with any assumptions or uh, thinking what's happening out there. So more from coming from curiosity and say, hey, this is what I'm noticing. This is what I'm seeing. It seems like this might be happening. What's going on? How can I help you? What do you need? And having that dialogue and having that conversation to uncover or to peel back or to pull out, what you need to understand. And in that conversation, you have an opportunity to also express your concerns or the team's needs or the company's needs, and to see, is this a fixable situation or problem? Is it a temporary thing? Is it someone that says ultimately is, just not into it anymore, or, it's not the right fit any longer. And then you help them find what is the right fit. So, but it starts with that, that sort of seeking to understand or coming from curiosity to find out what's going on, instead of assuming that someone's a bad apple or a bad player or trying to take advantage of things,
Yeah.
which is probably not the case more times than not.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Personally, as you're president of Ojo and you've had a lot of these, great roles as CEO of Keller Williams, what would you say is your biggest Achilles heel when it comes to keeping your balance? You have very important positions. You spend, a great deal of time working and you enjoy it. What would you say might be your biggest struggle?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, look, there's been times where I probably have haven't turned it off enough. Where I'll work all day and then work out and have dinner and spend some time, and then I'll go back to work, and and then it's then I'm exhausted and go to bed and then do it again, and that cycle could go on for a long time. So that's I have a lot of stamina and I have a lot of bandwidth, and that can be a good thing, and also can be a bad thing. So that's, at times, I'm sure that's been an Achilles heel. Uh, Another thing is, probably earlier on in my career, it was expecting others to feel the same way or look the same way or act the same way, or think about things the same way that I did, and knowing and then learning that that's not realistic. Um, I do not spend a lot of time thinking about my Achilles heel. It doesn't mean I don't have them. I'm sure I have a ton of them. Um, but in the context of balance, um, yeah, if I look back, there were definitely times where um, my priorities weren't always where they should be. There were times that I put other things ahead of things that shouldn't have been put ahead of. But I think as the years have gone by, um, we as we grow in age, we tend to have more appreciation for what really is important, what are the important things, and or hopefully we do.
Yeah.
And uh, and then you focus on those things more.
What are your highest priorities, would you say? What are the most important things in your life right now?
Um, I have four kids. They're all adults. They're between the ages of 24 and 34, but I've, I will never stop thinking about them or worrying about them, or wanting to help them, grow in positive ways. So that's always there, right? That's in the background. Um, my priorities are, with whatever I'm doing, uh, I understand that this is a game, this is a game I chose to play, and if I'm going to play the game, I want to win. So my priorities are winning. What do we need to do to win? What do we need to do to build the best team, to build the best company, to build the best product, to build the best service, whatever it is that we're doing. And another priority is it always has been my health. I I I bought my first car. It's a long story, but my parents moved while I was in high school. I didn't want to move. I convinced them to let me stay, get a job, and get a car. I don't recommend that, by the way, for middle class. But I remember that car was super important to me, and I instantly had the realization of, hey, there's different types of gas, so why wouldn't I put the best gas in it? There's different types of oil. When I change oil, I should put the best oil in it. And then it's like, hey, I have this one body, and so how can I treat it, as good as possible? So, my exercise, diet, those are all have been a priority for a long, long time, and will be as long as I have this body.
Well, but yeah, this is what I normally hear from people who feeling out of balance. They typically tell me that it's one of two things: their health or their relationships are suffering. And, any one of us who've had periods of being out of balance know this. And there are those who are really stuck and they can't get out. And obviously, that's a different topic, but it can be an addictive cycle. And it can be something where if you're falling off the wagon every so often, you realize maybe I am in this cycle. And you'll feel that your health will suffer. Your relationships might be a problem and cause, other issues down the road. What do you think other entrepreneurs suffer from the most? You've met a lot of them. You've hired a lot of talent, so you know people, and you've been a servant of as a real estate agent for many years. So as you've interacted with other entrepreneurs and other business leaders, what would you say are things that they struggle with the most while they're trying to grow their business and keep their balance?
Yeah. Oh, I think that's one of the things they struggle with, right? It's just that balance. It's for a lot of entrepreneurs, especially early stage entrepreneurs, it's there's more things to get done and more work that needs to be done than they physically have the time to do, but they do what they can to accomplish that. And so they struggle with and I've had conversations with founders of companies and companies that I'm an advisor to or investor in, with founders or people that I work with, saying, hey, are you, don't don't be mindful of the relationships. Are you don't let this get in the way of the important things. I'm hearing or feeling or seeing that this could be an issue, so I'm not shy about talking to people about that. I think um, I think another place that they struggle with is, and like everything that I'm saying, I've been guilty of at some point in time or another, but that is just taking ourselves and what we do too seriously. You know, um, for most entrepreneurs, it's not life or death. Now it'll feel that way, and we may even convince ourselves of that, but it's not. It's a game, and it's the game that we're playing. Now, if I'm talking to emergency room physicians or first responders, it is life or death, and that's a different conversation. But for entrepreneurs, um, I think a lot of times they tend to, or we tend to convince ourselves that so that we'll do the things we need to do, and there's other ways to create that desire and that willingness without convincing yourself that this is, everything depends on this.
Yeah, I really appreciate that insight. It really is a game, and I have friends who are firefighters, and it's a mind game for them because they
Yeah.
have to detach, right? But it's something similar. I mean, when you come home from work, if you're still firing, on all cylinders work wise, and you're checking email and texts, and then you're, like you said before, sometimes I've eaten dinner and gone back to work, and then there's a burnout period where you can only be so productive for so long. And for most people, the longer they work, the less productive they actually are, and
Uh,
the less refreshed they are when they come back. So I love your ideas of taking an Ojo week off. Like it's brilliant, because then the whole company kind of breathes. Like I've heard of, allowing for time, but it's usually sporadic. It's usually this person's taking this time, but having an entire week off like that allows the entire company to just kind of take a deep breath.
Well, I mean, for some people, it's if them taking time off is actually more stressful because they're
Mm-hmm.
missing out on meetings, they're missing out on Slack messages, they're missing, because everything is going on without them. But when
Yep.
everyone takes the time off, you actually can really relax and you can really unplug. And that's important. I think another thing that came to mind while you were saying that too is, um, having a partner, like my wife is like the greatest partner in the world. And, she realized early on in our relationship that when I came home, me having 5 or 10 minutes just to like, you know, not have to engage or do anything, but just to like make that transition from go work mode to being at home mode was really important. So she would give me the time to go change or, do what I need to do or finish that last call or email or whatever. And then, okay, now I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's a gift and it's important.
Yeah. Great point. Last question, and we'll wrap this up. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs out there or business leaders out there running teams who are, they're doing great things, they're changing the world. Entrepreneurs truly do change the world. Business leaders change the world, and hopefully for good. But what advice would you give them based on what we've been talking about today?
Well, there's so much. Yeah, there's a couple things come to mind instantly. One is, focusing on, you know, your customers, focusing on your team, making sure that they get what they need. If you do that, if you take care of those people, you'll get everything you need, and everything that you want. So, making sure your focus is in the right place, number one. And then making sure decisions are made based on not just economics or revenue or margins, but also on, hey, what's ultimately what's going to be the best experience? What's going to be best for the customer? Because if you do that, then typically the other stuff gets taken care of, your revenue, your margins, your profits. So those are a couple things that come to mind quickly. I think the other is, um, taking care of yourself. You can't give 100% if you aren't 100%. And so whether it's the amount of rest, whether it's the energy that comes from your diet, your exercise, and those things, you have to when you're on, you have to be on. And so you have to do what you need to do to be able to be that all the time.
Love it. Great advice. I appreciate your heartfelt answers and discussion here today on the Balanced Growth Show. It was a pleasure to have you on here, Chris. I know that you have a book that you finished up. Was it last year that you'd written that? You want to let listeners know a little bit about what you've written there?
Yeah, it's a book called Dominant Thoughts. And it's things grow where our minds go. And
Mhm.
it's a business parable. It's not about real estate per se. It's about a mentor and a mentee. When I was younger, I read, and I still read a lot of books. I read books that were really impactful. So this book is this takes each chapter that takes you through this story of this young guy and this successful former CEO. Each chapter is one of the lessons that I've learned along the way from my mentors and from my experiences. So it's a quick read, easy read, but a lot of valuable lessons and gotten great feedback and people buying it for their whole teams and their whole brokerages. And so it's been fun.
Excellent. Where can they find that?
can find it on Amazon or dominantthoughts.com, which will take you to Amazon anyways. So
Nice.
that's the place.
Beautiful. That's a place for books for sure. Well, I appreciate your time here with us today, talking about balanced growth, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the advice that you've given to us today and the example that you are trying to live this balanced growth life. Thank you again. And we appreciate you being on the show.
Totally my pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Until next time, everyone, remember, live life on purpose.